we're going to be discussing the anti-immigration protest that took place in Dublin yesterday. Indeed, two protests took place in Dublin yesterday, but at the anti-immigration one, there were many families with children spotted at the demonstration. I was reading this morning, Shane, in the newspapers, one reporter who was at Custom House Quay saying that they saw a little child of maybe 5 or 6 chanting, "Out, out, out, Ireland is full." And it got us thinking, and I suppose talking this morning about bringing children to protest, or to specifically maybe that type of protest. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I've never been mad the idea of kids on protest. I mean, look, I know there are exceptions. I mean, school children, for example, have driven the climate marches. And I think that's different if they go of their own volition and it's something they
They're
feel
also a
strongly
little bit
about.
older, aren't they?
Yeah, they're kind of, they tend to be teenagers. I thought young children holding signs, I never thought it was cute. Some people, they always end up in the front page of newspapers holding whatever sign it was, and I don't think it matters what your view is on the subject. I think people tend to go, "Oh no, it's fair enough if it's an anti racism march and there's kids on it." I think people go, "Oh, that's fair enough," but I'm not sure I agree. It's ever a place, and particularly if there's a danger of violence or aggression or bile or hatred. I don't think kids should be in that space. I really don't. And like, obviously children are more vulnerable. They're smaller. If things kick off, for example, they're inevitably going to be more vulnerable. So I just don't see why kids should be at those. I'm not mad about it generally, but definitely not if it's a contentious parade.
I do agree with you.
Protest.
I should hold up my hand. I've been to several protests over the years, and back in the noughties, you'll probably remember, Shane, there was a massive in Dublin. There was massive.
The anti-war in Iraq.
Anti-war in Iraq protest, and I was at that, and I had a toddler at the time, and myself and my husband did bring him, possibly because we had no other option but to bring him. And I felt okay about that because I thought it was an important protest, but I also thought that he was too young; he hadn't a notion what was going on. But also, it was a very nice.
You're not, if they're 2 or 3, you're not brainwashing them at that stage.
He wouldn't have had a clue what was going on, but also. Not the brightest. Just kidding, if you're listening, if you're awake. But the truth was that was a very peaceful, feel-good kind of a protest. There was no counter-protest,
never going to be
which
any.
was different to this weekend because there was 2 counter-protests. It is contentious. There was a risk of trouble and things like that. And that is my real thing. I don't really care what your view is on anything, and I don't care how strongly you feel about anything either. Bringing your kids to something, as you mentioned, where there's bile or hatred or likely to be, violence or anything like that kicking off.
For a kid.
Dreadful stuff, really, really awful stuff. But also, is it a form of indoctrination? I suspect it is. And maybe we've always done that with our kids with religion and other things too. So let us know. Let us know what you think about this. Two protests this weekend in Dublin. Certainly kids at one of them, the anti-immigration one at Custom House that marched from the Garden of Remembrance. Is that okay? Is that fair enough? Is little kids chanting out, out, out? Is that what is that a good thing? A bad thing? 087 1400 106. Love to hear from you on that.
The Irish Independent estimates around 500 to 700 people attended the anti-immigration protest yesterday. There were many families, women and children, as well as groups of men. Should parents bring their kids to protest? We've been talking about it all morning. Stella O'Malley, psychotherapist and author, joins us now. Stella, should you bring kids to protests?
Well, I think parents need to be free to raise their children as they, as according to their own values. And so sporty parents bring their kids to sporting games, and musical bring them to concerts. And so political parents are going to be more likely to bring their children to protests. But I do think if the protest is in any danger of becoming aggressive or distressing, I don't think it's probably a good idea to knowingly bring your child into something that will be very combative. I think some protests we all know are actually going to be quite fun-filled times. It depends on the protest, was my very long answer to that.
Yeah, no, I think that that understandably makes sense. I mean, it seems to be a no-brainer. If there's going to be tension, if there's going to be bile, if there's going to be hatred, if there's going to be clashing views, even if it doesn't actually descend into fisticuffs or violence, it's not really a place for kids, is it?
No, it's a place for adults to figure out their politics between each other, and some people do it in a less civilized way than we would prefer. And exposing your children to that isn't good for children.
What about the idea of passing on your political views, however strongly you feel them, to your kids? It's something I must say I'm quite conscious of, because look, inevitably they do pick up stuff that you believe. But I mean, if you're bringing your child on a protest, is it a form of? I mean, brainwashing is a very strong word, and maybe it's too strong word. But you know the point I'm getting to. Are you kind of indoctrinating them?
Well, you probably are, but you're indoctrinating your child from the moment they're born.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
to what, I indoctrinate my children to like good healthy food rather than processed rubbish, as they, you know what I mean, as they're taught to say about McDonald's. So we raise our children according to our values, and there is a vibe these days that we're almost not allowed to do that because we should be kind of raising them according to the state, and that, to the values of the state, and that seems inappropriate because we have children. I won't say for a narcissistic reason, but there's some sort of survival instinct within us that we want to reproduce something that is a reflection of our love for our partner, or certainly a reflection of our desire to continue to our genes. And so to pretend that we're not raising our children according to our values is disingenuous. So you and me, we're teaching our children what we think of the government, what we think of the roads, what we think of the school. That's what we do. Bringing them to a protest, you could say, is one step further. But for political people who are very politicized, it's not one step further. It's just like bringing them to a football match if you're really into football. Some children will never be brought to a football match because that's not the family
Yeah,
they're being
yeah,
raised
yeah.
in.
No, absolutely. I don't know. I've always had a kind of a queasy feeling about seeing kids at protests. You know, holding signs with political, and they don't have to be particularly contentious, but holding signs with a political message that there's no way they could understand.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. You look at it thinking, this is a vegan, 3-year-old, if you follow me, because there's no way that the child has written this sign. There's no way the child that understands this. This is the parents' values. And so you kind of think, to a point, the parents' freedom to politicize the child is their freedom. If the child grows up and then later on says, my parents were very, very political. I ended up having a political childhood. I had signs in my hand when I was 3 and there was pictures taken of it. That's the childhood they had. So long as it's done in a healthy way that is kind of acknowledging we're very political, we're very into this political group. I don't know whether it's Fianna Fáil or Sinn Féin. We go to these groups, and as a family, we're a Fianna Fáil family, for example. We're a Sinn Féin family. That's what we are. Um, there is an awful lot of families all over the world who are being brought up to different values, and other people who aren't as political feel queasy around that, but might not feel queasy with the family that live and breathe and eat music all day, every day.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
You,
fair
you
enough.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it depends on the family. It depends on their values, and we do have to respect the right of parents to raise their children in their own way, so long as it doesn't get
Yeah.
over the top and
Okay.
zealous.
All right. Very good common sense approach. Stella O'Malley, psychotherapist, author. Thank you for talking to News Talk Breakfast this morning. Let us know what you think. 087 1400 106.